God is known as Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace. You are meant to know and experience the fullness of God's perfect peace, His Shalom. His desire for His children is to always be at peace. He uses this peace to guide you. God's peace surpasses understanding and will sustain you through difficult times. And I can assure you that there will be some difficult times in your relationship or marriage. In those difficult times, it is only the peace of God that can sustain you. The peace of God settling in your heart is a product of fully being what we were created to be. When it comes to relationships or marriage, the only way to have the peace of God settled in your heart is by going for the person God has for you. The best place to make decisions that will affect how well your relationship or marriage is before you even start the relationship or get married. You can save your relationship or marriage before it even starts. The way to save it is to follow God's will. That is the best and most potent prescription for saving your relationship. When you allow God to lead and direct you, you can't fail. Psalm 32 verse 8, "I will instruct you, says the Lord, and guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch your progress." God is interested in every single detail of your life. He is ready and ever willing to guide and direct you, but you must first be willing to follow His leadings. There must always be the God factor when it comes to choosing the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. Without the God factor, you will make costly mistakes that I am certain are so expensive that you cannot pay for. The God factor is what will give you lasting peace in your relationship. The importance of knowing, accepting, and following God's will in your relationship cannot be overemphasized, because that is the only way you can enjoy peace in your relationship. You should always believe God would choose for you because He wants to. Allow God to choose for you because you are short-sighted. You cannot see beyond the present. God is omniscient. He is the all-knowing God, and He knows the end of a thing even before it starts. So you can trust His choice of partner for you. As long as you cannot see the future and only He can, then you should not put your future in your hands. Putting your future in your hand would be putting your future in jeopardy. You should rather put it in His hands and have Him navigate the course of your life, and that includes your relationships or marriage. One thing that should give you confidence in God to put your future and relationship into His hands and be sure that it will not fail is that God is the creator of the whole universe, and none of His creations has failed ever since they were created till date. God is such a professional because only He has the manual for His creation. Therefore, He is the only one capable of knowing what would work and what would not. Accepting God's will in your relationship by always going for who God has for you will prepare you for future changes. One thing that is constant with humans is change. People are bound to change. As humans, we evolve, either for the better or the worse. This change factor is the major reason why we have seasonal friendships. You will agree with me that the things you liked 3 years ago changed with time. So as humans, we change, and how we appreciate things grows or declines with time. There were people you were very close to years ago, and you are no longer close to today. You changed. The truth is that no one remains the same. No human remains neutral. Marriage is really about friendship, and one of the things you can do for yourself is to marry someone who for the rest of your life will enjoy being with. You cannot be sure of a friendship that will stand the test of time without God's help, and that is why you should go for the person God has for you. That way you will have unexplainable peace in your heart and enjoy a beautiful friendship with your partner. This is why you must always go for the person God has for you. This is because He alone knows man's heart and all that we are capable of. Choosing God's way would give you a good marriage. Though there will be challenges, He won't give you more than what you can handle. God will be with you and see you through challenges in your relationship or marriage, giving you His peace in your heart throughout the journey. If you marry someone God is quiet about or has said no, then you would only be putting an unnecessary burden on yourself. Not going for the person who God has would mean you are setting yourself up for trouble, a life without peace, a miserable one even. What if the person changes and decides to let go? What if he stops loving God? But if you choose who God has for you, when things do not turn out as you envisioned, you can take it to God in prayer and expect Him to intervene in the situation. Imagine living a life whereby you are out of God's reach to help you, a life where you cannot fellowship with God, a life where you cannot call to God to help you out of difficult situations and a life where you are disconnected from God. You can imagine how miserable and worthless such a life would be. That is what happens to your relationship when you do not go for the person God has for you. You go out of God's coverage when you do not accept God's will. Going for who God has for you will give you peace and make you rest assured you and your partner are heading to God together. The source of a thing is sustenance. If God is the source of your relationship or marriage, He will be the one to sustain it. God is a good father that wants the best for His children. But if you choose flesh and not the one He has for you, you are walking outside love and will end up using the flesh to sustain the relationship. That relationship will also not be able to achieve the original purpose God has for it. When you go for the person God has for you, that is His perfect will for you. Only then will you be able to get to the destination He has designed. Accepting God's will in your relationship and for your relationship means you want His will done on earth as it is in heaven. When God brings a man and a woman together, it's far from the perfect picture. It's two imperfect humans coming together to birth God's perfection, a transformation of sinners into saints. The fusion of both personalities evolve to become like Christ. When iron sharpens iron, magic happens. Proverbs 27 verse 17, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. God will not give you a perfect man or woman. He plans to enable the two of you to rub off each other so you can become better and stronger together. The goal is to become less carnal and more Christ-like, to be less selfish and put others first. God's plan is not a wedding like a world's but Christ's wedding. This is the image God has in mind when He brings two people together. You disrupt this plan of bringing you to perfection when you do not go for who God has for you. Marriage is very important to God. It is a reflection of God's dream of Christ returning to take His bride, the saints. God will never force everyone to accept His will. He has given everyone free will. Deuteronomy 30 verse 19, "This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." God will place before you His perfect will in the choice of a partner, and the choices you would like to make that are against His will. He will then leave you to choose the one you want. But it is always good to choose God's will, because it is always the best thing to do. One of the best decisions you can make is to go for the person God has for you. It assures you of peace. Your choice of partner is capable of changing the course of your life, either for good or worse. You cannot afford to make such decisions without proper and good guidance that comes only from God. When you follow God's will in the choice of a partner, you will have God's perfect peace in your relationship. A kind of peace that you only get when you obey God's will, a peace that surpasses all understanding, an unexplainable one. You will then have a life that is worth living. Shalom.